cases at the court in civil law in the United States include a judgment of conspiracy. So there, if I look deeper into how is conspiracy defined by American civil law, and then you see that they say a conspiracy is when two or more agents, I mean now in the economic sense, entities or whatever, juridical or natural person, but so if two or more agents are cooperating or coordinating their activities on the cost of a third party to gain on the third party, this is a conspiracy. And they don't have to know each other, they never have to be met each other, they don't have to have an agreement with each other, but they know of each other and they coordinate their activities in a way that they gain and the third party is losing. Do you understand? This is a very interesting definition of conspiracy. And if you look from this point of view, then you have to say that practically everything in business and in politics is a conspiracy. Yeah, I mean, there are millions of conspiracies. But of course, if your question to me was not about these small conspiracies, you know, in every party, everywhere, in every association, in wherever we are, you have conspiracies, because some people are always unsatisfied with the leadership, and they meet together and they say in the next meeting we will withdraw this person from the chair and you go on the chair and so on. So permanently are conspiracies, but we speak about probably the big conspiracies. Yeah? And so I don't know, but it seems that there are forces pushing towards us towards a certain direction. Yeah? So we would have to do research to really go deeper into this. But I said in the beginning of what I just said now that we can speak about so many different levels, and you know, find a little worm and you say, what should I do? The system is bigger, this is working, I mean, and we don't look through and so on. So, but I want to empower people, and I want not to frighten people, and I don't want to spread fear, you know, and so how can we do this, you know, and I remember, because you mentioned that the gentleman from the security side have joined us now. And we were once invited to a kind of, in one country, to a national security meeting, but where all the different military, high-ranking militaries and people from Secret Service have been and so on. And somebody who is close to me asked me and said, if we have this meeting and you give a remarks there, then please don't speak about spirituality, because this is really the least place where you should speak about spirituality. And I said, okay, leave it up to me, I will see what I'm speaking about. So instead of speaking about spirituality to the officers and the police forces and so on, I will speak about love. Yeah? So love. So, I mean, I entered, of course, in the military things and in the security things a little bit and so on, but then I said, no, I want to speak with you about love. And I said, let me define from a kind of rational, mathematical point of view what love is. I said, for me, it's just about two conditions. The first condition is respect. So if I respect a person and accept a person as the person is, you know, and I don't want to change this person. I say we have to change the paradigm, as you said before, And maybe also you in the military and in the security forces should not counteract with force, because force will create force, counter force. And in war you can gain victory, but you can never gain peace through war. So we need other means, yeah? And I said, so let's talk about a culture of love and a culture of peace and a culture of reverence for life, yeah? And so the question was, so what should we do as militaries? I said, well, negotiate, yeah? And negotiate from the point of view that you accept the interest of the other side. And you say, we understand that you have your reasons to fight. We understand that you are defending your values, that you are defending your families, whatever your interests and so on, but we do the same. So let's start first to accept each other and say, in your way, your interest is as legitimate. Start, enter into a dialogue, yeah? And then second question, how can we make each other happy? And then we have to negotiate and say, what do you really want? What would satisfy your interest? Yeah, I accept you. We have to now negotiate and find a way where it's a win-win situation, not a zero-sum game, but a win-win situation. So that's negotiations. But this is love, yeah? This is on an individual level called love, if we do this really. And so it was interesting because at the end, after the meeting, the head there, I don't know what it exactly now, what the National Security Council or so, in front of all the people, when he shook my hand and we said goodbye, he looked into my eyes and he said, I love you. In front of all the people.
No smile.
So, yeah.
Without smile.
Without smile. No, he made it serious. He made it serious. So I was really touched by this because I understood that he got the message. He said, we will think it over. I love you. Yeah? Meaning I accept what you stand for, what you say.
Is it the reason why Liechtenstein went into two big wars and then Cold War for 20 years, and Liechtenstein, small state, maintained independence because of that?
If it's not boring for you, I use a few minutes to give an
introduction about Liechtenstein.
Not the Liechtenstein, but this question in particular, because it's really interesting and it's exactly what I just talked about. Because the key for the survival of the independence and the sovereignty of Liechtenstein was Napoleon. You know, the big war in Europe, and so Napoleon was on the rise and he conquered the whole of Europe and he went deep into Russia. And while there were still battles going on in Central Europe, in Austria and in Germany back at this time between French and the allies of the French. So one of my ancestors, the then ruling prince of Liechtenstein, he was a commander-in-chief of a battle of the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy side, and he was the one who in the first battle where he did beat Napoleon. Because until then, for years, he won every battle, and there was already this rumor, you cannot beat him. And so my ancestor, in a relatively minor battle, won this battle. And then he was assigned by the Emperor of Austria to lead the peace negotiations with Napoleon. And so they met in person on the table. First the war, and then they met on the table. And Napoleon must have been a very interesting person in some ways, at least. And he appreciated very much to find an enemy who did have the skills to, on the military level, to counter, And also he liked his attitude and his way. And so he tried to convince, then there were other battles, and then the Austrians and the Germans lost again, and then the peace negotiations, so to speak, were put aside, and Napoleon went on into Russia and so on. And then Napoleon did come back to this ancestor of mine and said, you know, I learned to know you, you are a good military man, I cannot do this, because I'm not changing sides, I'm loyal. So he said, the more I respect you, but since I am in power in the whole of Europe now, I will 14, they will continue to exist, and others which were dissolved by Napoleon, they might not come in existence anymore. This was the general rule, and because Napoleon wanted that Liechtenstein exists, so we still exist, otherwise we would have been vanished. But I just tell you this story because it's exactly about what I have a few minutes earlier talked about. You know, respect, mutual respect and love, and how can we help each other?
Often look only for another attack, but not the root cause of the problem. Maybe you would like to respond to that. Thank you.
Yes. First of all, I would like to extend my personal apology for being late because I had to attend parliamentary hearing particularly from Commission 3 oversighting the police and other security agencies, including my agency, National Counterterrorism Agency. But the theme of this dialogue is very interesting for me. It is also connecting to the job now doing the head of National Counterterrorism Agency, which is on the issue of civilization and the divide of civilization. You know that for the students of international relations, there is a very famous debate between the two schools of thought. One is only mentioned by gentleman Samuel Huntington on his book, The Clash of Civilization, and the other one is that Francis Fukuyama authored the book on the history, the last history, the end of history and the last man. Yeah. So this school of thought also, you know, to some extent, likely to explain why Islamically inspired terrorism taking place today. Because in my personal view, what we are facing today in Indonesia is not a local problem, but this is the dynamics and the spillover of the international relations, particularly the conflict between the so-called Islamist terrorism, if you like, or Islamically inspired movement against the West. Francis Fukuyama postulates in his book that, you know, the history already over the conflict between big ideologies, particularly communism versus liberal democracy, and the winner is the West, liberal democracy. There is no race, civilization, ethnical group, whatever, that could, you know, stop the wave of liberal democracy. So everyone, every religion will go to only to one direction, which is liberal democracy. And this is also why, you know, semi-authoritarian and authoritarian regime being formed, such as in the case of Arab Springs, for instance. So if we agree with this school of thought being explained by Fukuyama, then the Islamically inspired terrorist movement, the one initiated the conflict with the West, because liberal democracy being perceived impediment for the re-establishment of Islamic Caliphate they are dreaming. Or number two is that the Samuel Huntington that believed that after conflicts of big ideologies, then international order will be colored by the clash of civilization. And Islamic or Muslim or Islamic world civilization, very potential to challenge the hegemony of the West. And the West taking a bitter lessons, taking so long time to defeat communism. From this bitter experience, they don't want to get the same thing happening, so that's why they are implementing what they call civilian strike to weaken a potential challenger of hegemony. And in this case, Islam is one of the most potential challenger for the domination of hegemony. That's why then, based on the second postulate, what happened between the conflicts between the Islamically inspired terrorist movement, or sometimes they call it Islamism, versus the West. The West was taking the initiative, triggered by, weakened Islamic world such as Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and so on. So, the terrorism, Islamically inspired terrorism, is just the response of those being triggered by the West. So, we have got two options here. I'm just wondering if Excellency, on the side of one school of thought, or maybe you have got another observation.
Investigate.
Yes, if you have got on one side, or you have got your own observation, what we can do to bridge between the conflict between the West and the Islamic, well, I'm not saying Islamic world, but those movements, the one trigger and using terrorism as a method of the warfare, because they are not using conventional warfare, it is impossible for them to win the big power, So terrorism is just a method for them, to achieve the goal. So as long as the conflicts happening in other parts of the world, particularly in Syria, and Middle East, and so on, so Indonesia suffered the spillover of the problem. So we are just struggling against the local problem, but not the source of problem. So what is your observation and also your recommendation to us? Thank you very much indeed.
Capitalism, and that Islam can offer a model, an alternative to the existing two conflicting concepts of world order. And therefore I want to be on the positive side and say, so where is the model of this third way between communism and capitalism? Where was it lost on the way somewhere, or is the internal dialogue within the Islamic world still continuing on something like this, or not? So it's not about fight, it's about dialogue, but it's also about what we call best practices. If the Islamic world could show to the majority of the people in the world that they are able to establish a just and better world, so to speak, than the American way of life, or then whatever the communist concept, then I think the majority of the people in the world would join the Islamic order, so to speak. But this is a question of tolerance, you know, and of practical everyday work. And I indicated now, I try to give a certain additional answer, I mean more concrete to what you posed to me. But in my view, you cannot gain on the military or counter-terrorist security intelligence level, you cannot gain the war. You cannot. You can, because we see that we are now really in the so-called war on terror. We are entering into a kind of global dictatorship, you know, in maybe not so much in your country, but I mean more and more also in Europe. I mean in the United States, you know, the control over everything now under the pretext of war on terror becomes so tight, and that you really can speak about as, let's say, a hidden dictatorship. And that's not the way, because I can guarantee you, if we enter into a full visible global dictatorship, this will produce legions of terrorists, you know. So the more you fight, the more the other side will fight back. And as I said, the interests are anyway, if you look a little bit deeper, not clear who stands behind each terror attack, you know. And I'm speaking now on the intelligence level. Yeah? I ask myself sometimes, and I know that I'm not alone, why it by chance happens that if you have major terrorist attacks somewhere in the world, by chance, usually one or two of the terrorists, they lose their passport on the spot. Your society and your country, so you have to do all the necessary security measures. But this will not solve the problem. This is the only thing I...
BIM. And I'm not sure if I can express my opinion. But one thing, even though we are Christians, have peaceful text from Holy Bible, we can also turn to radicalism. We are Christians. So I understand brothers, Muslim brothers, as we Christians, we can turn to radicalism. Will be forgotten. So perhaps the difficulty of our Muslim brothers is, I don't agree with people just now. She said, if Muslim preaching or building relationship with other religions, I think it is difficult while forgetting religious texts. I think it is not sure. So the difficulty for our Christian brothers is they don't want to live. They don't want to forget their religion. Let me express in Indonesian. Barangkali kami Kristen juga yang memang punya teks-teks yang penuh damai dalam Alkitab, kami bisa jatuh juga dalam keradikalan ketika kami merasa iman kami terancam. Jadi mungkin teman-teman Muslim juga karena meyakini bahwa memang dunia ini harus dihadirkan menurut kaidah-kaidah iman Muslim yang rahmatan lil alamin, kira-kira begitu. Jadi membangun sebuah kebersamaan dengan agama lain memang agak tidak mudah. So how can we build relationship? Or my suggestion is let us continue such dialogue and such meetings such as we do now. Perhaps in Jakarta, Mr. Bin can arrange, for instance, the dialogue between Ustadz and pastors. I think it is more lebih banyak kemungkinan. Thank you.
I'm Ahmad Lubis from University of Al-Azhar, Indonesia. I'd like to share my experience in the United States. I stayed 10 years in the United States. What happens, I think we can build the relationship among the religious communities. I think we have proven what happens. Here, I think we need education. We can start from the educated people first, in the university, in the church, and in the mosque. Because what happens, our experience is, we understand that we have differences among the Muslim, Christians, and Jews, and the others. But we try to build from the similarity, and then we develop through the dialogues from the mosque, and then in campus, and then in the church. After 2 years, I can hear from my Christian friends, Ahmad, we can see Islam in our Christians' religions. Because this is from the Abrahamic faith. And then we can start from the common issue, the common values. Like Islam, the blessing for humankind. I think there's some good things from Christian that we can share together, and then we build it up. But we have to start from the educated people first. Yeah, and then we start from campus. So we have to engineer this kind of activities through the higher education levels, not through the primary levels and then the secondary high school, but from the higher educations. I think it takes time. What happened after 2 years? The major city of Dayton. I used to stay in Dayton, where the peace process Bosnia signed. The Dayton Accord signed. And then what happens? The major city of Dayton invite all religious scholars from different religions, from the Muslim, Christian, Catholics, and then Hindu, and then Jews. We share the common values. I think this is the way to do it. And for Indonesian case, I guess, like me from Batak Mandailing, and then I have my, from the Christians. Yeah. I think we can build from the traditional values also. We have the Dalian Natos. Yeah. 3.3. So from the traditional values also we can build the relationship and we can build the understanding of us. I think Indonesia becomes a country that can really give examples to the world. How can we build peace among the Muslim, among the Christian, and also among the ethnics? I'm really sure we can build it, but we have to engineer, not just let it happen. So we have to make a model. We appreciate what Mr. Samsudin already has done for many years, 10 years probably already, and then this has to be expanded.
I hope this will be the start of our dialogue and you can participate in many of the events in the future. So thank you for coming today and participating in this dialogue.
Thank you. Saya kira yang terakhir ini nanti di copy, khususnya kawan-kawan wartawan, mohon dapat disebarluaskan. As a concluding remarks, very short. If I may conclude, the theme of your presentation today is from Liechtenstein with North. Because it's not full of love, from heart to heart. This is very important kind of dialogue. The true dialogue Arabic, not min al-aqli ila al-aqli, min al-dhihni ila al-dhihni, from reason to reason, ratio to ratio, but min al-qalbi ila al-qalbi, from heart to heart. I think we cannot ignore that there is civilizational divide. There is clash of civil problem, and we should not escape from this problem, but we have to work together to meet its challenges and threats. You know, many world civilizations exist in the world, and each one of them is trying to compete with each other for the supremacy, to be the champion of not clash of civilization but competition of civilization. And this encourage the global phenomena today is indeed the asymmetrical acculturation, the relationship between superior and inferior in terms of religions, nations, ethnicity and races. So not only at the level between religions and religions, especially Islam and Christianity, two youngest Abrahamic religions, and also with Judaism. And in this regard, I think the conflict between Muslims and Christians or Jews everywhere are indeed the conflict between the children of Abraham, because Abraham had two wives. So the children are competing each other, but also between nations. And therefore, if I may pick up one important point from you, we need to discern the root causes. Some have concluded that the very root cause of this all is indeed global injustice. General Tito is right when you are seeing there is conflicting between the two. And it's very true that the Muslim world, or some Muslims, have been reacting to this. Because the Muslim world indeed react to, in the post-colonial time, to the recolonized world. And also because of the modern world has encourages liberalization of culture through secularization and creating immoralities in many Muslim countries, so they react. It's indeed not religious reaction. Religion is only used, and even misused, abused, as a means of justification. So let's see, the situation is not merely religious or even ideological religious reaction, but they're coinciding with non-religious factors. I think this kind of reaction, if receive reaction from the others, and then we have in the world, in the human civilization, action and reaction, we don't know at the end who wins. And sometimes the winner maintain a kind of zero-sum game, as you say. But what we want is win-win solution, and therefore we need dialogue. One important sentence from Prince Alfred, that the longer innocent people are killed, once again, the longer innocent people are killed, the stronger reaction will happen. And this is, in my personal opinion, Pak Tito, maybe we can talk later on, radicalization will continue with re-radicalization. This is what you said just now. And we are agree that this is not only our local situation phenomena, but it's derived from the global phenomena. That was, I was intervening to you, you're saying about the global scenario, because I do believe that there is a global scenario to our situation today. And therefore, my last point as concluding from your presentation, that we need to extend dialogue and dialogue. We need to believe in the power of dialogue. But you repeat, Celine Dion, the power of love. The power of dialogue. But the problem today, that dialogue, many dialogue, interfaith dialogue, intercultural dialogue. I just arrived last night from Vienna, a meeting on extending, increasing intercultural, interreligious dialogue. But my suggestion was, we need new paradigm of dialogues, which is in my term, dialogical dialogue. Dialogical dialogue, because so many dialogues, interfaith dialogue, intercultural dialogue, are indeed to our more monologues. Yes, indeed, the new paradigm, number one, dialogical dialogue, which is based on sincerity, openness, frankness, for problem solving. So we need dialogue for problem solving. I think we have been trying to exercise this kind of approach here. This office is also headquarters of the Interreligious Council of Indonesia. It consists of 8 elements, representative from 6 religious councils, the Indonesian Council of Ulama, Bishop Conference, Communion of Churches, Hindus, Buddhist Association, Confucianist Association. Some of them are here with 2 new other religions, and you and Muhammadiyah. So the 8 elements, we have been trying to exercise dialogical dialogue. I said to my Christian colleague, please give us Muslim leaders list consists of heart feeling of the Christians toward the Muslims, and I will give you the same kind of list consists of heart feeling of the Muslims toward Christians. So we may juxtapose, and we may solve maybe 1 or 2 problems remain. So this is dialogical dialogue. And number 2, dialogue should be comprehensive. Sometimes interfaith dialogue, interreligious, intercultural dialogue are dialogues among the moderates. No problem on the table. But if we go out there, there are conflict because we exclude the other people. So I have been suggesting to include the excluded. Actually, we have been trying, especially with the hardliners on the gray area from the Muslim community, from others. And lastly, really we need to find new ways, new strategy. And this is, I have been insisting to my government that we have to sit together to set up new comprehensive national strategy for counter not only terrorism, but also violent extremisms, to meet the challenge of the self-claim Islamic terrorism. I use this term, not the Islamic inspired. Because the problem, I forgot to mention earlier, there is ideological factor on this kind of violence, but for sure, ladies and gentlemen, in my observation, violence is not merely individual, physical or group physical violence as we perceive it, but there is also state violence, and there is also capital violence, and sometimes or most of the time the two, capital violence and state violence, are collaborating to oppress the people against the injustice is very principled. So therefore, we need to set up, to formulate new strategy, to see the situation is not merely derived from ideological, but also from non-religious factors. I was blamed, how come religious leaders didn't speak out, didn't come with a new counter-narrative, you say. We have been doing that. But as long as there are any other factors, with the responsibility of the state, of the government, of the global community at large, I don't think we can solve the problem. So this is our collective responsibility. As far as theological factor, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the responsibility for misunderstanding of religion, because as a former student of comparative studies on religions, former undergraduate, almost all holy scriptures, Al-Quran and also the Holy Bible, I can tell the verses, I forgot it. And many other religions are full of war stories, including Hindu scriptures. And also those holy scriptures have phrases. On the one hand,